Business indeed. And I will give a slight disclosure. I'm sitting at the Wendy's to pick up my son from his lunch after his shift, and my phone has 4% charge left on it. So I have everything turned off on it, and I hope I don't drop. If I do, I'll be home in just a few minutes, and I'll plug in and get back on as soon as possible.
Fine.
Okay. Thank you for that, guys. Well, we will move forward. We are recording now. It is the DFM Data Core Steering Committee. The date is December 15th, 2020. Delighted to see and hear everyone here. So for the purposes of roll call, we have John Greaves, Linda Getz, Michael Darden, Jeff Hurley, Denise McCurdy, and for the record, we do have consensus. So I am going to push on. And let's go to the next one. Okay. Antitrust policy. Again, we always read this out. Neither DFM Data Core Inc. nor its committees and activities shall be used for the purposes of bringing about and/or attempting to bring about any understanding or agreement, written or oral, formal or informal, express or implied, between and among competitors with regard to prices, terms, and/or conditions of sale, credit terms, or marketing practices. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on. I assume there are no questions on that one. Okay, guys, here's the agenda for today. We've already done the call to order and the roll call. I'll give everyone just a moment to look at the agenda. Okay, do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
That was Linda and Jeff. Any opposition? Hearing none, we are approved by acclamation. Moving on to the next agenda item, we had the meeting minutes of November 23rd, 2020. I sent those out right after that date and then again yesterday. Really just the key notable action from that was that we owe John a formalized pipeline or sales forecast. Assume everyone's had a chance to read those meeting minutes.
Yes.
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 Okay, do I have a motion to approve the November 23rd meeting minutes?
Yes.
Second?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. That's John and Linda. And any opposition? Okay, hearing none, those are approved. Thank you for that, guys. So first of all, Michael and I were talking about the times that we do have to have confidential conversations about clients. And given that we just read out and we continue to read out the antitrust policy, we agreed that it's important to note for the record that the recordings that are part of our sessions very much could contain confidential client information. And this may require us to momentarily pause the recording on occasion just to preserve this confidentiality.
So moved and as usual.
Thank you.
Definitely prudent.
All right, moving forward to the working group chair reports. So this next slide, I just want to tee this up because this is, I think, a very good slide. So we're starting with the IT working group that we had on December 4th. And I want to share this with everyone because there's a lot of really good information. And Michael had a chance as the interim chair to ground this initial kickoff meeting with some very targeted deliverables that this group needs to accomplish. I think it was a very, very good kickoff meeting. The meeting minutes and the recording are all in all the appropriate places. Michael, did you want to say anything about this before we move on to the first agenda item, which is the permanent chair?
So my phone's about to die, and I put it on mute and closed the screen down to be able to try to stay alive for the last 2% that I have. But I'll be joining you back for commentary on all of this stuff afterwards. If you can kind of just go through what changes we made or discussion points that were on here. Like I said, I'll be back to my house in about 4 minutes. And
all right, not a problem. You know what? Okay, we're just going to continue with the marketing and the operations readouts. Jeff and I can do that, and then we'll circle back. So
That'd
that
be great. Thank you very much.
not at all a problem. Okay, so for this next one, then guys, wanted to then go into the the initial marketing working group that is slated for tomorrow, December 16th. And this is the proposed agenda for that marketing working group, which David Wolf is going to chair. So assuming tomorrow's meeting does take place, with this meeting, we will have stood up the marketing, operations, and the IT working groups in 2020. I give you just a moment to look at that.
Golf clap.
Yep.
Yeah, it's we made some progress, which is great. I'm assuming this is okay. There's nothing, this is not set in stone, but this is more to show that we're making progress. We're doing what we said we would do. And let me go back to this slide because I think this is important as well. So this is again, sorry, that's not that one. Michael's going to speak to this one. You've seen this before. So this is the the 4 different phases. It's been updated, but this is August 20 through December 2020. So we're almost at the end of the year, obviously. And you'll see the steering committee, which we are going to continue, the operations working group. We've had 2 meetings. We have 2 more planned through this year. The IT working group, which we'd like to rename to technical working group. We'll get back to that. There's more of those because they need to be. Just talked about the marketing working group. The first meeting is on the 16th. And of course, about the Dallas roadshows that we did. From a governance perspective, which is really what we're talking about here, we do have, again, the steering committees that will 3 to 5 as required. We're going to continue those through July 2021, at which point in time, and per the bylaws, we will stand up the 11-person committee. That's assuming we have enough DFM members that have joined. This is always at the discretion of the board. And then also there's a plan here for the other working groups as well. So it's going to be every other week for operations and marketing. IT will be every week. And then accounting and governance, we will stand up in probably sometime in January.
May I suggest, Denise, that operations and marketing can indeed deal with 2 weekly models, but try to avoid a cycle that becomes a bicycle, meaning boring. If there is no material of substance since the last meeting, the chair should be made clear to them that they have the right to pull it, and just roll it. You have to have substance, otherwise people stop turning up, frankly, as you know.
Yeah.
In the matter of IT, yes, they are a weekly meeting because it's the core of the company. I mean, it would be like having a water company and not having the water purity committee meet.
Right.
I'm totally with that. And incidentally, that actually has the other side of the coin I just mentioned. It should also be mandatorily weekly, even if there is nothing of substance to come out of it, because it is the core of the company.
Reports along the way, just of the data integrity and any exceptions that have occurred, et cetera, et cetera. I think that does need to be, I absolutely agree, John, a weekly check-in, check-out, check-up.
Right. Now, accounting and governance in this respect, first of all, they must exist. Secondly, of course, they'll stand up in January. But may I suggest that we need to adopt some standard terminology. Michael Dodden just touched on it, actually, quite by accident, or not so much by accident, but by incident. It's kind of taking the fifth, right? In terms of, I'm relating to a board I sat on some years ago in Canada, and the problem was that the numbers were not able to be discussed in the board meeting because they were in fact they were client specific. They could only be discussed as a whole of the company. So let me explain. The company's revenue for the month of January was $1.7 million. Okay, cool. What about that account that we have in XX Place? We can't talk about that. So you actually had to leave, go and see the auditors, get an audit, come back, and then have a board member propose to review the revenue or EBITDA of that particular account. Why am I going through this? One, accounting and governance should only be monthly. Secondly, governance and accounting are inextricably linked. Let's get rid of that before we even start the debate. And third, in the matter of accounting, someone needs to look up the rules for a board on accounting disclosure. And what Michael should have said to me, although he was very poetic in what he said to me a moment ago about where he'd been in the meeting before, was, in this matter, I regret I'm unable to disclose due to the probability of antitrust violation. It's taking the fifth financially, fiscally.
Right, that makes sense.
So could you please, Denise, have people who join accounting and governance be ready to know that, no, they have to tread the line that the others don't.
Yeah.
And that line it's broad enough, so long as you start by saying, well, no, I'm not gonna tell you what happened between us and or how did we know that JB Hunt are carrying Walmart? That's like, no. And we've discovered this, did you know that Werner have got all of the Czech business? No. Accounting and governance people should go to a short video compiled or discovered by Denise before they can sit on accounting and governance. Thank you.
Okay. Completely agree. And that would be part of like a training package for them.
Yes. They, like here in Florida, I'm on the library board, right? And you have to sit and watch a video and then do a test on what's called the Sunrise Law. Anyone know what the Sunrise Law in Florida is? Well, I'll give you the short answer. 2 people in Florida are in prison for 7 years because they violated it. What does it pertain to? It pertains to holding meetings that should have been of public record, posted and held in a public area to which the public have access, having been conducted in a cocktail bar from which the outcome was perceived to be criminal. You can't be an official of the county, state, etc., unless you clearly understand Florida Sunshine Law.
Yeah, understand completely. We have a method of adding training videos to the onboarding process. And I'll take that as an action that this particular training video, and I understand the importance of it, needs to be for all accounting and governance work group members.
Correct. Thank you, ma'am.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that, John.
It might also need to apply to all working group members. So you can imagine that IT, there might be some very sensitive things about different companies' IT that's discussed that could be proprietary, and you just want them to be aware that there could be a line they needed to tread softly there as well.
I'm unlikely to concur with you on that one, Linda, for a very good reason. The IT group, right? IT inside the IT enclave, and should not be bringing to that group should not be bringing to the working group operational deficiencies, only the fact that an operational deficiency or improvement occurred. So,
I just think there might be some very fine lines in conversations.
young lady, you know fine lines and conversations, so I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, I maybe just making this, Denise, across the board as part of the onboarding on a working group. You know, before you get the link to join, there's just a check off that you've watched the video. I mean, I think it would probably be wise.
Linda, you're right. Done. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
good idea.
I agree. Michael, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back on. Sorry, my phone got to all the way to dead as I pulled in the driveway, and now it's charging back up from 4%. But the last thing I heard was John Greaves talking about the ability to be able to take the fifth because of the likelihood of an antitrust violation, and I appreciated his commentary on comprehending the issue as being just similar to that of taking the fifth. But I didn't hear anything after that.
I'll summarize, but John, tell me if I'm not doing your words justice. But in essence, it would be using the Wizard modules, Michael, to create a brief training video that is required for all working group participants and steering committee.
Excellent idea.
Yeah, that they understand that the antitrust regulation and basically how to take a fit, like confidentially.
Excellent idea. Great use of the tool that we've already built to be able to deliver that message.
Yep. And I'm sure there's canned stuff out there, so I'll investigate that. Okay, I'll take that as an action. Anything else?
And if there's not, I'm sure you can can something very nicely, Denise.
Using David as a voiceover. He's got a great.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right, folks, so in the interest of time, if there's nothing else here, then I would like to go back to.
So did you mention, Denise, the one change that we made to this in phase 3, just for clarity of transparency?
Not specifically, but I will. So guys, we talked about having a 3 to 5 person committee monthly or as required through July 2021. Originally, this was January, we're going to stand up a 5 person. We're not there yet. We do have in the bylaws, and they've been in the bylaws for months now, the ability to stand down on moving to a 5 person, and that's at the discretion of obviously the board of directors and the CEO. So Michael has exercised that right to say, at this point, we're not going to have to have a 5 person. We're going to leave it 3 to 5 person in this time frame.
And really, just because of the fact that we're going into January and we don't want to be demonstrating the fact that we have to have 5 people, it was the wording that was on here was mandatory 5 person committee, and it wasn't a mandatory. So I just asked Denise to be able to modify the language. I wanted to just make sure that we had the point communicated during this meeting.
Agreed.
Thank you for doing that, Denise.
No worries. And again, that's consistent with the bylaws. So that was just really making certain that the deck aligned.
I did want to point out just briefly, as I'm looking at this slide, and I'm now available to do so, you'll notice that we did lay out several more of the meetings going into 2021 because we really want to be able to make it so that there's an incentive for people to be able to come have a voice in these working groups. So we want to have working group meetings that are set and identified of when they're going to happen so that there is content to be able to be discussed in there, not that we're just meeting for meeting's sake, as John was saying.
Yeah. And I don't know if you heard that, Michael, but John made, I think, a very good point that if there is nothing substantial.
Yeah, then they should call it back. It's a great point.
Yeah, they should pull it back because he's right. People, they stop going if there's nothing.
No question about it. If there's good content that's to be discussed, then people will be there. If you're there to be able to fill time, then it's a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah.
Totally agree. You know, I used to go for a drink with Darden, but then he stopped buying his round, so I don't go anymore.
Not true. I just haven't made my rounds down your way, sir, but I'm thinking about it. I actually was trying to get Miss Getz to be able to plan a trip down to the Florida area so that I could stop by around the holiday again, but I haven't gotten it confirmed yet, so we're working on it.
Yeah, I'm getting the house bought and getting that Florida foundation laid really well.
There you go.
Definitely get you guys in front of some good people down there shortly.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like the way you're thinking.
So moving on, Michael, we are at the IT services roadmap. So this was your agenda slide from your initial meeting on December 4th. And I thought that was good to include this just so they could see the kind of material that you were covering. So I'm going to let you speak to this, including our agenda item, which was the nomination for chair.
Yeah, sure. So there's the first meeting of the working group for IT was somewhat of a formality because the IT team meets every day or every other day as it is. And we have stand-ups where code review and feature review is conducted at least 2 times a week, always 3 meetings or more during the course of that week. But the code review side or the feature review and checking off of completed tasks is taking place currently. And what we really looked at was that there's a series and agile function of being able to have sprints, and the sprint management really is somewhat of a project manager. And I have a resource that I have worked with for many years before that is an emeritus professor, PhD from Auburn University that has a background in supply chain and logistics and in aeronautical supply chain. And he has been the owner of a company that does projects under the name of fluidprojects.com. And the Fluid Projects methodology was created by Dr. Uzumeri. And I was suspect of it when I first heard about it about 7 years ago. And I did a pilot project with Dr. Uzumeri where I took a dormant system, and by securing splinter skilled labor and resources from around the globe was able to form a team that was able to digitally put back together what I was trying to be able to have done without having any full-time hires. And they did it for about $1,200. And it would have cost me $1,200 to explain it to a consultant that was going to look at what the problem was. But with Vic's method, it was very affordable. And I got to watch him do project management. And Vic is now retired. I have reached out for him probably 6 or 9 months ago because part of his skill set is to be able to build instructional design, video, motion graphics. And that's part of what we need to be able to communicate to people. And he can kind of do it in his sleep. So I just told him that, look, I don't want to do anything full time with you, but if you can help me out, this is what my opportunity is. And he's become aware of what we're doing and has met everybody on our team and has engaged in some forecast models, engaged in some calculation of costs, has engaged in some design issues, in some graphical elements. And at the end of the day, he has become quite infatuated with our project. And with COVID and him having to stay inside of his house, he has some time on his hands. And although he's retired, he has suggested that he would be willing to serve as an interim chair for the technical or IT committee. And as his resume speaks for itself, you can certainly go pull him up online, and I can certainly delay until a later time to be able to make a nomination. But as those that are on the team and on the call here have had exposure to Dr. Uzumeri, I would move to be able to make the recommendation that we offer him the opportunity to serve as the acting chair for the technical committee to help organize the chapters and sprints for the technical development effort.
So moved.
Seconded. Yeah, he's a fantastic mind. Yeah. And an equally wonderful person, but he's definitely got the technology chops and the data processing awareness and experience base to make this be a really great fit for now.
Yeah, and he's provided some really solid thought leadership on our projects, as well as having, as you said, Linda, the skill set to make it happen.
So when he heard the function of how we've designed the company and the governance to allow for the functions to be spelled out by the technical companies, by the companies that we are building a technical interface with them, he was like, this is an endless flow of projects. And I can help you set up the infrastructure to be able to do this and to manage the execution. And I can't think of somebody better to put in that spot. So I've suggested to him that I would have this conversation with this team here, and that if it's appropriate, that I'll have a conversation with him about what the true requirements of that job is. So I have not gone over the specifics of the job function and the requirements for meetings, but I can certainly do that once we've gotten the approval here. So thank you for hearing the motion and for acknowledging his expertise and seconding.
Excellent. And is this a good time to talk about IT and perhaps replacing that with technical?
I think it's wise. That there's a conversation to be had here. I mean, there's no functional or legal or systematic requirement to be able to change the term IT to technical. In the system currently, it is used as the term IT, capitalized in the tabs on the names of the modules. So there is a discussion that was had about being able to change the nomenclature of IT to the word technical. And I have merely raised the concerns of the fact that we have developers that are currently working on the core functionality of the system, and stopping them from do that to be able to make a name change through reference files might not be the best time to do it. So it might make more sense for an interim step of us identifying this as being DFM Data Corp IT, or technical/IT, or technical paren IT. And when they make the technical change from the backlog of making the name change from IT to technical, then we can make the change here in the working group to be able to make it so that it matches technical and take the IT out.
And the reason for the suggestion, guys, is IT tends to be a part of the technical. Technical is a bit more standardized. To your point earlier, John, you usually hear the word technical working group. People get that as opposed to IT. Thoughts?
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think since it doesn't really have any material impact other than the naming aspect of it, I don't feel the rush to put it on top of the devs list of things to do. But if it's more indicative of what this working group is focused on, then switching the name and having that managed across the platform over time as appropriate would be good.
Yeah, and from a technical standpoint of the technical committee, I would recommend adding it as a backlog item that, you know, is third level priority, so that when somebody, you know, is in that area of the system, that they can go in and address this sort of a search and nomenclature change. But it's just sticky, and it's better to do it now than later. You know, but it's still sticky. So we need to be cautious about doing name changes just because it's so representative in documents and in legal things. And in this case, I don't know, I haven't considered any place where it would be representative inside of any of our legal documents that we would need to change. But Denise, we need to take an action to just go and review that as well and make sure that there's nothing that's identifying that they're going to be logging into the IT portal or IT module or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is going to be in the images. It says IT in the web. It says IT, and then of course in the command center member voice.
So y'all see what I'm saying here, right? I mean, it's just scattered everywhere when you do it. So to be able to make the change, it means your entire market brand takes place. And I don't know if it's necessary. I think we could actually just put a paren after the IT at the moment and put technical in there, and it would serve what the immediate need is without the requirement of changing it in the system. And when the backlog gets to be able to resolve that issue, then we can change the name here, and it's really the least amount of disruption as we can cause.
I think the images will be fairly straightforward. The web is fairly straightforward. The legal docs are very straightforward. So let me take an action to do that. Let me take an action to identify where it needs to be changed.
That would be good, because I think it's a scope of work that's going to spill out into legal, into marketing, and into technical.
Yeah.
And
but it sounds like, in principle, there's agreement to change it from IT to technical.
I'm not throwing my vote in that hat.
Yes.
Okay, and I heard Linda say yes as well.
Yeah, definitely not as a top tier priority. And I do know that we've also addressed the potential change for the marketing team, and I know that it will be equally. There are redundancies of that all over the system as well that would need to be managed. But I don't know is that something that we're addressing?
What was marketing changed to?
What is that changing to?
It wasn't. There was just extensive discussion around what that name should be most appropriately.
Okay. Well, let me take the action to identify where it needs to change, and we certainly know that it is not a top level priority.
Again, I want to preface the fact that there's a lot of places that these names are referenced, and in order to make a blanket change like this we should really have a good reason to do it before we just ask the development team to be able to go and do that. That's it's my last statement on it. I'll leave it to everybody else to be able to make their call on how we want to be able to do it. But it's right now, from a prioritization standpoint, to have anybody stop to work on changing this, or any time in the next month to be able to even think about having this on their list of things to do, I think would be insane.
I think the principle of, creating the least disruption, is the overriding principle on this one.
Guys, I got to disagree with you on this. I think if you're going to, I agree that the command center can be we know it's IT, it really means technical, but the legal documents, the images, and then the website, people just know technical more than IT. And if we're going to change it, it's better if you change it now rather than later.
And again, this is why it's a discussion to be able to have on the steering committee, because it is that there are points to both sides of this argument, and it could be fought. But if you're going to do it, then we really should look at anything else that we want to be able to change name change wise that is evenly distributed and not duplicate this effort. If we want to change marketing to something else, if we want to change ops to something else, then if we're going to make a name change for it, then let's pick a topic called name changes. And what Deepak may want to do, instead of making a name change, is make it so that there's a configuration page that allows somebody to be able to ghost a name from whatever we called it to whatever you want to call it.
Oh dear, here we are. First of all, if you're going to do it, let's be done with it. But secondly, why are we doing it? And I actually concur. In the digital transformation society, which is where we are, incidentally, it's so funny. Just yesterday, I had to deliver a considerable dissertation, as it were, over the Zoom phone on the subject of, basically on this subject on, please be careful what words you use in your bit against what words I use in my bit. But here's what's interesting. What came out of it, a very diverse community, far more diverse than us, in terms of profile, commercial profile, was that, in fact, we determined that it would be a technical group. And the reason was because whilst at core today, the technical is about the software, as it progresses and as we do not know what digital transformation tools are emerging, well, we know some of them are emerging, but we don't know what's behind the next train, as it were. It would be good in case we get something like, you know, satellite optical truck observation system, SOTOS. Wasn't that good off the cuff?
Did you just make that up?
Yeah.
That's really good.
But
trademark it.
If you assimilate that to our system, you see, that's not IT, but it is technical because it becomes a tool. Because we'll use SOTOS to show that the truck was there, it had picked the load up, and SOTOS will zero out the ghost load, the phantom freight. Which incidentally, copyright this one as well, Jeff Hurl. FANTOM, phantom, freight, FRATE. Eliminate your phantom freight with DFCDM. Never mind. So I'm kind of, I want to use technical, not IT. In fact, I would suggest to you, if you were to listen to some of my more recent papers and speeches and lecture, whatever the hell you want to call them, that you would find me preaching to people, it's not IT anymore, guys. It's digital transformation, it's blockchain DLT, and as such, it's process and platform. And we don't know yet what platforms will emerge in time. And we sure as hell don't know what processes are coming, including SOTOS. So let's go technical. Now, to the secondary point in this discussion, do we change other things? Actually, no. Funnily enough, for exactly the same reason as the one I just gave as to why this one should change, the others are static. You know, I mean, I've been in operational criteria or operational environments for, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying a long time, but I used to stable the horses that went with the chariots. And marketing, you know, even though these days we, you know, get all excited about, oh, digital marketing. And this, frankly, would require someone as a marketing professional who is specializing in digital marketing of digital product. But it's marketing. It hasn't been mollified, modified, been malleabilized, whatever the hell. So I'm good. And I think accounting and governance actually is an emergence of digital transformation, blockchain, DLT, because they are suddenly linked inexorably together because they are now in the blockchain. So you have to have governance of the accounting people, not from Deloitte or from the SEC or from the Bank of England, funnily enough, from your own corporate engine, because they are devising, in effect, blockchains that manage interests that are fiscally exposed during the course of that blockchain. I thank you for listening. I'm now going for a Heineken.
So, sir, just as clarification for the final of your summarization, are you suggesting that we should expeditiously resolve this one issue and then stay static on it for our distribution in all other areas, therefore highly prioritizing this to be able to make sure that the alignment and the change that Denise is recommending and you're recommending is done post haste?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I see it as one of two options. It's either put off for some point in the future or we got to go do it right now.
Let's do it right now. Let's leave status quo except for this one and change this one to technical working group because they are responsible as technologies for all technologies known and unknown throughout the life cycle of the company. Thank you.
So Denise, your action item is proper of being able to go through and identify what the different sections are, but you need to circle back with me to be able to make sure that we affect that request with the priority that it needs.
Okay, fine, fair enough. I'll take that as an action. I'll put that in.
And then we can take the cost of that process and apply that learning as to whether something like marketing can or should be changed over time. I do know it's something that David has somewhat of a purview over, and It's a question that's been raised on a number of occasions, and we'll have hard data to point out how costly a choice like that might be. So I think that would be instructive.
No, again, it's why I wanted it to be a subject of the discussion here, and why we didn't just make the change and make a determination, because it's something that's really important to understand the ramifications of some decisions. And this is one of those that is going to have those, because it does truly sprinkle through every function of area that we've put together so far.
Yep, I agree. Okay, guys, thank you for that. We already covered the marketing. So Michael, I'm going to move forward to the updated solution stack. Jeff, could you just spend a couple of minutes sharing this with the team before we move on?
Sure. This is an update to the solution stack that I think we covered maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago. What we saw as a deficiency in the previous diagram was that it really didn't provide the breakout of the cleanse confirmation going from the DFM to the virtual machine ATR, as well as then the cleansing notification coming back. So we went ahead and detailed those out in the blue, red, and yellow lines, as well as put a legend on the diagram. We also included the member voice platform, which was not on the diagram previously, since that's really what the DFMs will be interacting with.
And actually where they'll be getting their ATR from. If you'll notice, there's in the upper left-hand corner of that, the box Jeff was just talking about of the member voice platform, is this, what looks kind of like a stamp of the instance for VFM or for VM with ATR. And that is for each new DFM as they come on board to be able to launch their virtual machine. Right. Thank you.
Any questions on this before we move?
No, I think this is one of the most excellent representations of architecture that I have seen put together, where you see the first, second, and third layer of transactional data properly represented. It's sort of the Sistine Chapel of schemas. The only difference being it wasn't done by an Italian guy. So
Jeff, you're not Italian, are you?
German-Irish.
German-Irish, yeah.
No, I knew he wasn't Italian. I don't see spaghetti stains on his shirts.
So Jeff, there is an objective that I notice here. We didn't maintain the legend of the confidential proprietary DFM Data Corp 2020 on all rights reserved on the bottom, but it is very it's a really clean looking diagram. It looks really, really nice. You did a really great job.
That's where I was, and that's where I'm staying. I don't want any changes. I think it sums up the business model. It indicates to all of the parties, even your proposed new one, Michael, which has my support. And the reason I have to give it my support right now is because, unfortunately, I have to go on the hour. I am summoned by my leadership out of the blue to weigh in on a tricky matter, which I will. But there's one other item on this agenda that I'm aligned with Michael on, and that is this classification that he is arbitrarily called, not arbitrarily, that's terrible, that he is called appropriately shipper. He and I in talking, I would have adopted the term contractor, but that unfortunately already has some implications in this business. So as Michael says, that shipper's agent is a known term. Yes, I also agree with his viewpoint of how they will be involved. Basically another member of purgatory. in as much as they're nearly in heaven, but they're most likely to go to hell if they don't behave properly. So I think there's a good market there, Michael. I looked at it after you'd spoken with me and had a bit of a trawl around on those two keywords, shipper's agent. And I can see it, yes. I can see they control an awful lot of loads, and they control an awful lot of loads that are arbitraged in the general market, causing the exact thing we're trying to cure. So we couldn't exclude them.
That's exactly right, sir.
Yeah.
We really can't. And that's what I came to, is the fact that they really didn't fit in either of the other two buckets, but they have a place. They are a contributing polluter.
Yeah, in a nutshell, give them a bucket. And
Thank you, sir. There's a little bit of work to do around that, but I'll start some of that effort with Denise to be able to make sure that as the next steering committee comes together, that we have some efforts put around that.
Yeah. And can I give you my final remark of the day, please? My final remark of the day is very, what a surprise. Succinct, blunt. I would like to see us start looking at not necessarily us, I mean us in the royal term of the company. I'd like to see us doing some marketing media, some marketing material, some, what's the campaign looking like for the spring? What are our jingle, what are our words? What are our slogans? What are our outreach? You need, Geico, so 15% in 15 minutes, DFM.
So just to be cognizant of your time, sir, I want to share that Jeff has been curating articles for us for about a year and has become quite good at identifying the content that's useful. And we have made an engine that allows us to be able to populate an article with our opinion and a few quotes from it and put it up on our blog, and it pushes it to LinkedIn and to Facebook and to all over the place. And if you can start seeing those and liking them and sharing them from there, it is the mechanism for our voice to the community that you refer to. So I'd be glad to be able to share that, or Jeff can share some as well.
I would, but I don't see the baseline. So somebody needs to include me in.
Yes, sir. That's what I was suggesting at the end was that, Jeff, if you could share the link to John Greaves so that he has access to the blog post, that would be super.
Absolutely.
And it's daily. I mean, Jeff is doing it daily to put new articles and new content up there. So
guys, ladies,
we'll get you on the link, sir.
Thank you. Guys, ladies, love you to bits. See you next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Hey guys, moving forward, we still have quorum, and Michael, I think it's probably a good time to talk about the My Voices platform. This would be a good group discussion. I did update the MOU to give us a 14-day grace period. Guys, we're on this access to My Voices platform right here without executing member or license agreement. We could see there was a need to bring these DFMs on board. They want to try it. We want to onboard them. We want them to peek under the hood, but they don't necessarily execute a license or a member agreement immediately. So we've draft changed the MOU to include a 14-day grace period. And
can you share that, Denise? Do you have that handy, or is that something that we didn't prepare for the meeting?
No, I can certainly, I can easily share it, and it's a very.
Yeah, I mean, Denise and I looked at it yesterday because we thought about this, or day before yesterday, and realized that because of the fact that we have eliminated the roadblock in the system for them to be able to have access to the other modules before the documents are uploaded, we needed to be able to modify the MOU so that if they actually read every single word that was inside of it, that it was representative of the fact that they were having access to this and that they were granted access to the system for a period of time, but that they wouldn't be able to really process any transactions until they uploaded their documents. Sorry, I was trying to buy you some time while you pulled it up, so I'll hush now.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So it's this language. This is the exact same MOU. The only thing that has changed is that which is in red. And it is really this second part of it. And I'll just give you guys a minute to read that, number 2.
On the tail end of that, Denise, so 14 days before executing the license agreement, isn't there also a member agreement?
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking that same thing, Jeff, and
So he's right. It should be the member and license agreements.
And a trial period of up to 14 days.
of up to 14 days. Okay. But should it not be, because here we have just license agreement, right? We don't have member agreement and license agreement. This section right here, and I'm wondering if it needs to change on both then. Voting and specific as noted in the license agreement. I don't think so. Okay, of up to 14 before executing the member agreement and license agreement.
Also notice, Denise, at the very bottom of what's available to be seen at the bottom right now, it says note signatures will click wrap on the DFM member center.
That should be member voices.
Yep.
I'll make a note to check the rest of the documents as well.
So just as a note for everybody to know, as soon as we get this so that it's done and we change the red to black, Denise saves this as a PDF, uploads this into the system as the right document for the MOU for a new DFM, and it is live instantaneously.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great functionality for the platform to have.
Yeah.
There's also a record of the historical document being archived and this one being updating in its place. So we have document record tracking for each iteration as well.
Denise, I would make that member voices singular because it is just one platform, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's what we call it. I'll keep it red until I go back and check the other one. This is the DFM member and not the
contributing member. Yep.
Yeah. So I'll do it for both. And I'll make sure that that member voice change is made, and then I'll save it for the December 15th and then upload it. So you guys are all right with that then?
Yes.
Okay, I guess technically it would be probably, because this is an MOU, I will ask please to have a motion, officially a motion to approve these changes.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Yeah, I'm just kind of processing the potential outcomes of the 14-day trial period and what thought was put into that period. I'm just curious if that length of time is appropriate, what access they're going to have to working groups during that time frame. Just an awareness of what this really enables.
They'll have access to working groups and to comment on the working groups, but they won't have access to be able to create anything new. So they'll be able to see what's there and comment on what's there, but they can't make new ideas. I think it's the way that he has it.
Okay, so they'll have access to the member voice platform, but not real or complete access.
That's correct. They won't be able to configure their ATR. They won't be able to stand up a server. They won't be able to run their first set of transactions through until they've uploaded their documents. But everything short of that, they could do.
Except for contribute into
I have a little bit of discussion still to have with Deepak as far as what exactly those rules are, because they the fact that we're changing the issue to recommendations, that code is open right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but there would be a way to permission them into visibility, but restrict them from input.
Yes.
Okay, and that can be automatically triggered, or is that something that'll have to be manually managed on?
I mean, it could be if I
each?
put it into the specification of what they're to build, is to be able to make it so that it automatically triggers when the documents come up. And we had it so that the document upload was already triggering events. So the fact that it's already got a trigger attached to it, it should be able to fire a new message to release that piece of permission.
And then shut down access after the 14 days if the documents haven't been uploaded?
So that's not what I've described at this point. What I've described at this point is that at 14 days, we get an action item. They still have the same restrictions on their account, but we don't do a hard freeze on it until the end of a month, is what I've basically said to Deepak, but it hasn't been coded.
Mm-hmm.
So there's usually 2 rounds of this. I mean, I'll describe what the use case is. He'll ask me questions. We'll detail into what we think is the rough use case of it. And then when it's functioning, connected to the other pieces, then we make sure that we've got all the pieces that are inside of it that connect to all the other spots.
Yeah, I just don't want there to be something like this specificity of 14 days and then kind of a looseness to it that makes people feel like DFM doesn't have its stuff together.
Your pressing has reminded me of the fact that there's a configuration area that has this as a ability to be able to add on an account basis of the fact of what this period is. So we can add a configuration field that is in the command center for what the default is for this and what the reminders are for it, and just have it so that it's a constraint on that account.
Okay. And they would get a couple of follow-up emails that are welcoming and then reminding them of the time frame, and that could just be automated.
Yeah, that's what we've described, is that there's some automation of the action items, and that action items can have a secondary component to them that triggers an email externally. So for some events, the content of what's the trigger in the system will also trigger an external system to be able to bring them into the system and say, hey, there's something for you to do.
And the purpose of this is just to increase comfort level and trust of the system?
We want to show them that we have built this. We don't want to tell them that we built it. We don't want to tell them that we've been just sitting around for 18 months working on legal contracts to figure out how to extract money from them. We've actually been building a solution that is a governance model for them to participate. Come here, let me show you. Here, come in. We gotta invite them in and have a cup of coffee and show them how it works, and have a talk with them and let them play and kick it around and share it with another member and let them go kick it around and ask some questions and talk to somebody else. And that's 14 days.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. You clarified my questions. I'm happy.
It's good question. And there has been some thought. I mean, it's not been haphazard, and the specifications that you're referring to of doing automated triggers is really important. But this team has had a great deal of conversation about these action items and which ones of them we really want to know about, because some of them are going to happen one right after the next, after the next, after the next. And if you got 16 accounts that are logging in and new users that are coming in, and you're getting an action item and a notification of every one of those action items, and you got 50 accounts, you're looking at hundreds of action items that are showing up on your screen. And that's okay if you can manage hundreds of them. But I got to make sure that what you're being notified for are things that are truly actionable, not just informational.
Well, and that need a human being.
Exactly.
If we can automate the reminder emails and things that are just fundamentally communicating next steps, they don't need a human.
So we've tried to prioritize these action items to identify that these are the ones that actually require you to do something. Here's a link to go to that something. Here's an action item for something that you could go do. Here's an action item for something that you should probably know about. Here's an action item for something that is a scheduled reminder of something that's coming in the future that you should be aware of. So those 4 categories.
Yeah. It sounds like we're definitely building towards customer success. So I'm happy to hear that.
Yep, I think so too.
Excellent points, Linda. And I'm glad you raised them because it helps me understand those triggers as well and the process that needs to occur for that. Given the conversation we had then, Linda, are you comfortable with supporting the changed MOU?
Yes, I second it. Yeah.
Okay. You know I was going to come back around, didn't you?
I tried to give that in the last thing I said, but I appreciate your thoroughness in making sure it's the appropriate language and confirmed. So
It was a very excellent conversation.
Was there, I know we talked about the fact that it says member or license agreement there, but we talked about it, whether it should say member agreement and license agreement. Did we cover that point sufficiently in the edits on that? Can you pull it back up real quick?
Yeah, because the voting power and specific patent license rights as noted, but that is actually noted in the license agreement. That's not noted in the member agreement. The member agreement states that they have to sign the license agreement.
So I get that, and that's why I'm thinking that the member agreement might be something that we're referencing here that is the primary document, because it's the one that tells them that they have to do the license agreement. And the membership, we're saying that they are becoming or being named from this point forward, whereas DFM member. So we have to reference the member agreement as what they're entering. The license agreement could be a secondary thing to that, but I think the point of there being two agreements is one that we shouldn't overlook.
yeah, and she did put that at the bottom of the red.
That's why I was asking. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to be able to see if it was
included,
captured properly.
Yep.
Okay.
So executing the member agreement and license agreement is there at the bottom, and I think where you have the formalized with the DFM member agreement, I don't think it's necessary to put and license agreement because that is an kind of an automatic follow up on the member agreement, but it's saying that those things need to be executed for the relationship to be in place for full access to occur.
So again, I appreciate your clarity on the point to be able to discuss it with thoroughness. So I'm fine with closing it down, Denise. Thanks for opening it back up to just make sure that it was represented properly.
No worries. I got the actions to make those changes, and I'll check the other. So guys, purposes of time, I know we've got a hard stop here in 15 minutes. So let me go back to the deck and the agenda. So we had the raising the letter approach and then the sales forecast update. Those two things to discuss in 15 minutes. Michael, did you want to hold off on the letter approach and talk about sales forecast, or did you have a preference on this?
So the real purpose of the sales forecast discussion was to take that offline and have a conversation with Mr. Greaves because of his interest and suggestion for the accounting and updating for visibility by the steering committee. And I can report that there's been effort by the DFM data team to organize a worksheet that has configurable inputs that based off of configurable assumptions produce models of expected outcomes. And there's been some thought put into the original model that was developed by Dr. Uzumeri and David and I back in May, and we've pulled that model back out and gone over what the variables of different size DFMs and what the estimates of loads that we're kind of starting on for being a small, medium, large, and extra large DFM. And with more information and more interactions with DFMs, we'll be able to kind of zero in on what those numbers should be. But the forecast model that we've put together, I think, is powerful. But I warn just for clarity in this group that the one thing that I learned about forecasts is that they're always wrong. You are never right on a forecast. So they're different scenarios. We can look at them, we can update them, we can adjust them, but at the end of the day, it's a calculator, and we can plug in past information to be able to see where we are, or current information to see what we think is going to happen. But all the future stuff is really just guesses. And today we're at a lot of future stuff. So, what I typically try to do with these sort of models is make a most conservative or most pessimistic model, and then a most optimistic model, and then a most likely model. And, somewhere between, you're going to end up hitting, hopefully, the gap of what makes where the business goes.
Yeah, I'm just going to move that we move that sales forecast update to our next agenda so that John can be engaged in that.
I think that's appropriate, and I'd be happy to be able to provide a more detailed update at that point. I'm happy to describe briefly the fact that there's been a rejuvenated interest from John Larkin of being able to reach into his contact base and extend introductory messages along with Christmas and holiday wishes to his peer group. And it has opened up meeting after meeting after meeting. And I mean, huge companies, Global Trans and JB Hunt and Landstar. And I mean, like the players that we want to meet with and the top of the house. So my next meeting is tomorrow. I have 2 of them. I had 2 meetings yesterday with former executive vice president of DAT and with a company called Edge Logistics that does about $70 million in brokerage business. And last night I did a recording with Linda to be able to try to brief after that meeting. And we need to get a little bit of a process more organized. And I did have a conversation with Deepak about being able to upload Zoom videos that are bigger than the current size limitations that were built into the upload. But I mean, we own the servers. We're hosting the servers. So if we want to provision the uploading of Zoom videos, we just have to be able to provision it and say that that's the rule for that folder, and then we can get it. So I told Deepak today that when we select in step 8 a Zoom meeting in the file folder that's there, we have to be able to accept up to a 700 megabyte file, which means we can't have more than a 3-hour meeting that we upload. But I think that would make sense for being a limiter.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for the update, Michael. For the purposes of the minutes, I'll note that you gave that and that you provided that update, and also, Linda, that you suggested that we move this officially to the next steering committee so that John can have the benefit of it as well.
Now that's moving the sales forecast update. Did we want to move the letter approach or cover that?
That's my next question. Is it, thank you for that, Jeff. Absolutely. Do we want to cover that now, or do you want to move that to the next steering committee?
Can we just get a brief overview and then actually have decision-making in the next steering committee?
So I'll try to provide context to the issue on the table, which is the fact that there was an initial discussion related to developing a communication that the attorneys advised us was required if we were looking to make some level of a private offering to a certain group of companies that were of the number that we're talking about, where there is a direct communication that is simultaneously distributed to each of the digital freight matching companies, basically giving them the opportunity to identify themselves as an accredited investor that would be interested in procuring equity in DFM Data Corp. And that communication was intended to be a compliance move of being able to address the digital freight matching companies with the value proposition of the fact that we didn't go to the private equity companies or the venture capital companies that were going to be vultures in this space, but instead we approached friendlies as investors and then approached the customer community for them to be able to participate in standing up an operating budget for this entity. And as the iterations of that simple compliance document went from compliance document to marketing document, from marketing document back to compliance document, and 16 iterations with numerous multi-hour reviews of every word and every sentence, the letter was shared with a gentleman with Go By Truck, which is one of the smaller, very small DFM companies that has this gentleman Lewis as being I believe vice president of sales and marketing for them. He is well studied on marketing approaches, and he is a 28-year veteran of our armed forces, and is a very stand-up guy. And I've met with him. He was there in Texas at the first Texas meeting in September, and we had a nice lunch together. We bonded on family and on our morals and ethics. And when he heard the letter, he said that he felt a message that was different than the message that he had felt from talking to me, and that it was not doing us justice to be able to send this letter out in the form that it was sent at, and recognizing that there was a lot of work that had gone into this, that he really strongly recommended that we reconsider sending the letter. And that message has been heard and reviewed, and we've reread the letter and decided that our approach of being stick them with a needle and put a Band-Aid on it for the relevance to current times of vaccines being released. We don't know if we really want to be able to approach everybody first with being able to punch them in the arm with a needle. We really might want to have a little softer approach of connecting with them first and communicating to them that we are doing something for the industry that is beneficial for them to participate in. And the messaging of where the letter has gotten to is one that, we didn't feel comfortable being able to send out. But we're now at the point that the plan for the company was to be able to have a universal communication that was going to be the anchor or the flagpole of what our first communication was with them. And now we don't have that. So we either need to rejuvenate the letter with the opportunity for the DFMs to identify themselves as an accredited investor, or we need to re-strategize what the blanket communication for each of the DFMs is going to be that helps us to be able to secure general understanding of the fact that they have a requirement to be able to meet with us and discuss the formation of our entity and support for the industry.
Thank you for that recap. Yeah, it's definitely a sticky wicket, isn't it?
Well, it's one that I'm really uncomfortable with because, I was told during the whole time of, got to work the process, got to work the process, got to work the process. And we worked the process, but the process took a long time and a lot of meetings and a lot of discussion and no customer contact and no marketing research, no, communication and asking, how would you feel about this? And I had a really good meeting with Lewis, and at the end of that meeting, I felt comfortable to be able to share the letter to get his reaction, and the reaction was not a good one.
Right.
So, we can replay all those messages and go back and reread them, and, you'll hear his directness and candor in his concern of our genuine success if we choose the approach that we have currently chosen. So, I took that opportunity to be able to speak very candidly with David about what our approach is and, is this right? And the response at the point was, we're hearing from the customer and that we should pull back. And that's okay, but we have to replace it with something that is complementary to the objective that the initial letter was to serve, which was A, to put them on notice with some sort of a letter with a timestamp that was consistent, and B, to be able to let them know that there's an opportunity for them to be an accredited investor with a company that they qualified for because of what their business model is.
Mm-hmm.
But that messaging has not gotten to the point where we're ready to be able to share it or send it. And I don't want to waste all the effort that's gone into it before. I don't want to throw all that away. So I want to try to revigorate it and see where we're at.
All right. I'm just curious and Denise, maybe you can help me best understand this. What makes this a steering committee question, or is it a business process internal question?
I think this was a conversation that Michael and I had in setting the agenda. So that's a good question. It might not actually be a steering committee type of question.
So I actually think that it is a steering committee question because it's related to our communication, to our bringing on.
Oh, Michael, we lost you.
Bringing on, I think he was saying bring on shareholders. And it's part of that equity agreement, right?
Are we suggesting that we need a softer approach, still need to use the letter, but a softer, kinder approach to it?
Do we need that mark in the sand of when all the DFMs that we were aware of got notified? Is that the real purpose? Is that
Yes,
that mass notification?
that's
of
the legal
industry?
requirement. That's the legal requirement. The legal requirement for the raising of funds is an SEC regulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about doing a non-public offering, but to a
Right.
limited set of potential investors.
Gotcha.
So Michael, I understand that requirement, but are you suggesting that you would like to revisit a softer, kinder version of the letter and still send it out?
I think that without having a communication, whether it's one piece of paper, whether it's a just a letter with my signature on it, whether it is a high gloss marketing piece that goes with a letter, or whether it is a letter that comes from Sparks or some other law firm, the communication for us to be able to raise funds of more than 35 companies in our model would require us to be able to have a public notification to all of those companies that could participate. We are allowed to make up to 35 exceptions.
Okay.
But the accredited investors are what we're trying to make the notification for, is that if you are interested in being able to be an investor in DFM Data Corp and your company is an accredited investor, then there's an opportunity for you to be able to become an investor as you do dynamic freight matching. So yes, I'm suggesting that there is still a need to communicate a message to everyone that we know that's in the industry that is doing dynamic freight matching, and to communicate it to them in a way that meets our requirements of compliance for notification of their opportunity to be able to participate in a fundraising event.
How much is time of the essence in this? I'm asking just because discussing it and making any sort of decision today versus waiting till next time. I know we've gotten to 3:30, so I want to respect.
There's a review of the letter that is the first step. The review of the most recent version of the letter with a clean set of eyes, I believe, is what the next step is. The how that makes you feel, how that makes Jeff feel, how that makes Denise feel, how that makes a DFM feel, is probably something that we should investigate a little bit further than just what Lewis said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have some industry players that would be willing to review it and share their feedback.
I think that's market research that we skipped that step last time.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't skip that step this time.
Well, we started that step and it just had a very jarring.
I get it. I do.
Well, it was a sample of one.
Yes,
sample of one.
It was a very small sample. Yeah. So, okay. So we're looking at taking maybe doing a split, one version versus another, and asking the same people to read both and give us their feedback as to how they felt differently.
I think an A/B test is what Lisa had recommended initially when we talked about this, and that's a very tried and true mechanism for being able to get a sample size of feedback. And I think we would first need to be able to have a letter A and a letter B, And we would also need to be able to identify our small sample size of who we want to be able to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we come up with a strategy around what that looks like and we execute to what that strategy is, then we would have a good sample size to be able to make a good determination from the A/B test.
What sample size do you think is appropriate?
An odd number. 7, 11? I like 7 or 11.
Okay.
If you got 9, I'd probably be okay with it.
You'd be okay with 9. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say 7, 9, or 11. Let's shoot for 11, and if we're struggling with the responses of getting 11, then we'll settle on 7. But I think it's important for us to be building some relationships with these people and to be at the point where we can share some documents with them and say, we want your opinion on this. It's not officially being sent to you in a certified letter. We're test marketing. And
do that with people that you've already had good explanatory conversations. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, that's not going to give you the same feedback as cold receipt, which will be, unfortunately, still the majority.
Yep.
Yeah. So is this a Lisa action then, as a product person?
She's certainly a part of it. She may be even the point on it.
Okay. Well, I can work with her to
she can be the point on the execution of the testing.
Right.
I think that the content of the letter, I was a little concerned last time when we talked about the A/B testing of the fact that it was her instinct was to let's just fire it and see what we get before putting our best foot forward with what the effort was. And I think we wouldn't have learned what we wanted to by not having 2 distinctly different copies. And I think that's what's needed. I think they shouldn't be too close to the same message things. That they should be 2 distinctly different messages.
Let me do this. We have the existing. We do not have a distinctly different plan B, but I can craft one. Michael, I'll share it with you or the steering committee if you'd like to see it. And then if it's suitable and fit for purpose, then we'll have our A/B, and then I can work with Lisa on the sample size and the execution plan.
I think that's appropriate. I think, if, the importance of having this information is the timeline of when we can send the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'd love to be sending a Happy New Year. We got this new thing that's going on and you should be a part of it in 2021. Here's the information.
Maybe just add that into the front of the email or if the front of the letter to.
Well, I mean, that's the thing
is
you read John's letter and, John's intro, and it's very personalized in the first paragraph. And it summarizes the social issues of what's taking place that we've all experienced together. And he draws you in right there. And then he says, well, I need to be able to share this piece of information. I want you to allocate some time to be able to do it. We need to do the same thing, I think.
Yeah. Can we bring this up on the exec steering committee? That's
absolutely. That's where the work will get done for this, I believe.
Yeah.
But I did think it's important for the steering committee to be able to understand that the communication for the shareholder side or the potential shareholder side is not doing what we had initially intended with this letter. And this letter has not gone out, and the steering committee is not been made completely aware of that. I mean, everybody who's on the steering committee knows, but in this forum, it hasn't been addressed in such a way. And it's a factor.
Yeah.
We had intended on being able to have a communication that goes to every one of these companies that we could level set and reference. We don't have that. Makes it really hard to be able to call somebody and say, did you get my letter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a readdressing time frame opportunity that we have here. So
I think so too. And like I said, I'd love to be able to try to get it out between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, if we really got a letter and we made 200 copies of it, I'd go buy 200 stamps and 200 envelopes and get them labeled and Merry Christmas. Here's your thing. Happy New Year. Here's your thing.
Yep.
But we put a lot of work into this. I don't want to start all over again. I want to see what we did with the process. And if the work that we did with the process yielded something that at the end of it, we want to throw away every piece of it, then we need to readdress what the process was.
I think the work we did on version A, we can certainly reuse to make a version B. And I'll spend tomorrow to start to pull that together. And it won't take that long because it's going to be the smaller, kinder version. I'll be ready to share that at the stand-up on Thursday.
Well, I'll just share one quick little alternative approach, which was mentioned to me by somebody the other day. I don't remember exactly who said it, but they said basically that I could write a letter and it'd be just really personal and say, look, you've got option A, option B, and option C. Do you want to reach out for DFM Data Corp, reach out for Block Know-How, or do you want to call Sparks Law Firm?
Yeah, that would make it truly a different Plan B version. And we have Plan A, and I'll make sure everybody has it. I'll send that out with the meeting minutes.
I'm just mentioning it because it was mentioned to me, and that's the point of a discussion like this. Is to,
it would
to
make the
recognize
AB, it would make the AB extremely different.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to follow up to the DFMs with a letter from DFM Data Corps saying we've secured a letter from Michael and give the letter that you have already written to DFMs that are members in good standing, I think that would be a very interesting way to address the same problem, but very, very different approach than what we've really considered before.
like a strategy.
Yeah.
Would it qualify, would a personal letter qualify as public notification to inform accredited investors?
No, but the follow-up letter that Linda just described would.
Would, okay.
So
Yeah.
the letter from me would basically be saying that, hi, I'm Michael Darden. I invented this thing and I've started these companies and they're out there doing this thing. And there would be an opportunity for you to be able to proactively engage with these companies like this. And please do so like this. They may be reaching out like this. And it's just informative. It's a direction for them to be able to expect a call.
Yeah, it builds awareness.
It's a thought.
And then we solve the problem for them. Hopefully that's how it's felt. Because the communication has to happen. And if we haven't learned anything else, we've learned that people need to know about the patent. It's not something that we can pretend doesn't exist and, just kind of gloss over, because when they do find out about it, which any DFM worth their salt will come to an awareness of it sometime throughout the process, and it has to be addressed. And I think, Michael, that may be the most forthright way to do it is with you as the inventor and owner, communicating, where things stand, and then letting us follow up with the, hey, we've gotten your easy button. We can solve your problem. We have this letter that has been written to all DFM members in good standing, and we'd like you to be in good standing. We'd like to invite you to join our platform, and there's an opportunity to participate in ownership of it as well. And then it is, we are the nice company. I've struggled with the having to communicate about the patent and communicate that we're this helpful utility that's solving a real problem, because it's a mouthful. It's a lot to digest all at once. And so if we did coordinate a 1-2 process that allowed for them to get the communication, and then almost before they can have all their
before
lawyers
they can worry about it enough
in a posse about it, right, help deliver the solution in a timely manner that resolves the potential pain points they're seeing. So if you don't mind starting that process, Michael. I know when I asked you to write the letter to the DFMs on behalf of DFM Data Corps, you did a phenomenal job and created what I felt was such a comprehensive relief for the DFM members, so that they had that confidence that they could be in good standing and not have any issues around the patent.
So there's a discussion to be able to be had there, Linda, that we could take offline if we wanted to. But the letter that I wrote was then modified, and it's not signed or sitting anyplace at the moment. And we need to finalize that step so that the date that's on it is part of our accurate date history of what's taking place, because time's just going by without it being affected and entered into our business documents.
Yep. No, we definitely do need to make
I mean,
sure.
it was literally, I mean, I appreciate the kind words of the writing of it, but it was turned from that into a marketing document. And that wasn't what my intention was of writing it. So I didn't edit from there afterwards. I can go back and find the original document if you want and see if we can get that to be the finalized piece that goes into the bylaws. But I think into the board book, I think that's important to be able to get done.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. So, yeah, no, good stuff. I like the direction this is going, because we do need to just cleanly communicate with the DFMs and, you know, get the use of this utility rolling forward with everyone having an awareness of its existence.
Yep. I agree. So I will, with the meeting minutes, I will send just so you guys have it handy, the Plan A letter. And then Michael, you've got the Plan B letter, yeah? And we can talk about it at the exec on Thursday.
Yeah, So are we saying that this is an action on me to now have the letter to the company and the letter to everybody drafted by Thursday? Is that what we're saying?
Just did the personal letter from you, which I think you've already done once. The personal letter from you, we'll send the chaser letter. And
So all I've done is the letter from me to DFM Data Corp. That DFM Data Corp can pull out and show, hey, we have this authority to be able to be your get out of jail free card.
Yeah, so you'd be working on the other letter that would be the informative, these are your 3 options.
Yeah, happy holidays. Here's your 3 options of how to be able to go forward in 2021. You can A, begin paying royalties like this. Here's my bank account number, routing number, etc. B,
and that letter is, and guys, just to make sure I'm clear, Michael, that type of letter, that Plan B letter, would be coming as a, forget who writes it for a second, but that would be coming from you as a personal letter?
We're just describing the strategy, so it's an appropriate question to be able to ask. I mean, I'm trying to envision in my head of whether this is a Christmas card or a holiday card that I'm getting that I write a note inside of.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of holiday cards that have, you know, no text inside that you can get to be able to write your own message in there. And if this message is short enough, it could include that. It could also be a letter that has got the check boxes. I mean, I haven't written it. This is why we wanted to have this conversation today about this communication, because it needs to be replaced with something. And I followed the lead of everybody on the team and their reaction to the survey of one. And I echo the fact that I don't want Lewis or anybody else to be giving us the "I told you so" and that we didn't take what they said seriously.
I just see a personal email from you, not necessarily within a Christmas card format, but just the way it was explained. Hi, I'm Michael Darden. I invented this thing. I'm just repeating what you said, Linda. You know, it's something that's informative. It's a short, brief, personal letter, just sort of, you know, informative and descriptive. That sort of sets the stage and the awareness. Then we can follow up with, again, Linda, I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, hey, you heard from Michael. You know what? We've got good news for you. We have a platform for you to join. You can own equity, blah, blah, blah. So it really is a 2-step process. But Michael, I see yours as being something brief, informative. I wouldn't put it with a Christmas card, and I would probably do it as an email.
I don't know that I would want to associate it forever in their mind as the Christmas gift.
Yeah.
That I agree with Denise on that one. But I think next steps into the new year. Absolutely. Yep. I think next steps, you know, how to start 2020 right, is definitely a message that needs to be heard. And I think, you know, once they get through the processing stage, may even be a welcome message when they recognize the value add that the utility brings to the table. So but that informative thing aspect of our communication, it has to happen.
Linda, who was that marketing professor that sent me the name of that girl that did the presentation. Do you remember his name?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Was it one of the guys presenting, or that was on the video?
No.
There was a Michael Edwards
grouping.
Okay.
No, he wasn't in that grouping. I'm afraid. It was. I don't remember exactly how you introduced me to him, Linda, but he was interested in blockchain, a marketing guy. He's a marketing professor.
I'm putting search
from
terms.
A smaller university in the.
Sarah Mueller's. You're not talking about Sarah
Yes.
Mueller's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The one that initially sent that to me. And I told you who it was when I sent it because you had introduced me to him.
Michael Edwards. Was that? I think Michael Edwards was her professor.
Yeah, Michael Edwards was on the, I think on the tail end of the video.
Yeah, this is from earlier in that. This is somebody that was connected through BCC.
Okay, so this wasn't the
You and
Sarah
I did
Mueller.
a call with it.
Okay, I will try to dig my notes on that, see if I can. I mean, that he said it's a marketing professor. Matthew Conlon? No, he has a marketing group.
So he sent me a picture with or a link to her presentation that was coming. And
oh, okay. So that should be in your email. Can you query that?
He sent it to me via LinkedIn chat. So I'm trying to track him down. That's what I'm
okay. So you're just saying that he might be a good person to bounce off a strategy.
He's a
with.
marketing guy. He's a marketing psychology guy.
Okay.
He's the psychological marketing guy, and I think the messaging of this was something that was intriguing to him.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name. Sarah Mueller. How do you spell Mueller? M-U-E?
Yeah.
L-L-E-R?
Yep.
That presentation is on that she did is on, Jeff put it on the Zoom link under the general channel. That was a good presentation. But there was a professor there, I think at the front end and the back end.
Yeah, that was Michael Edwards. But Michael's saying another professor put Sarah on his radar to start with.
What was the date of her presentation? Do you remember? Was it November something? Chuck Hermans.
Oh, it was Chuck that put it on your radar.
Yes.
Oh gosh, he hails back to Blockchain Chamber Days, me going over to Dubai and meeting the CEO of the company that he has been the blockchain based company that he's been working for. So
right, but his literal background is global marketing and logistics professor.
No. Yep.
So I'm thinking that we might want to be able to have this conversation with him about the A/B testing and let him use his psychological background and marketing background to be able to identify the best way to be able to get the polar opposite A/B testing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send him a message now if you want.
Yeah, it just took me a minute to find where he was. Sorry about that.
No, perfect. And I wasn't pulling that. I've never used him for that. It's always been in connection with Synchronium. So I did not even dial that one in. But yeah, no, good stuff. I think there is a positive path forward on this communication, and you want to communicate the realities and not get an emotional shutdown. And that's kind of the fine line that we're needing to walk here. So,
yeah.
Indeed.
Yep.
So I think he'd be good. I was trying to think earlier today for who could be a psychological profile person that could think through the psychology of what this marketing message is. And he came to mind, but I couldn't think of his name. And I wanted to bring it up in our conversation today because I know you introduced me to him. So if you can open that door back up, I'd be glad to engage in that conversation with him as well.
Yep. I'm getting the message sent to him now. So.
Super. So I think we were supposed to be on another call a few minutes ago, or 23 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we were, I have a call with Sarah Barnes Humphrey, just so you know, at 4.
Have you stopped the recording or?
I am stopping it